Okay, today is the 6th of September 2010, and this is the 48th time we are speaking on the Majjhima Nikaya Suttas. And tonight, I think we are going to go through two very important suttas. The first one is Sutta number 118, Anapanasati Sutta, Mindfulness of Breathing. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Savatthi, in the eastern park, in the palace of Migara's mother, together with many very well-known elder disciples, the Venerable Sariputta, the Venerable Mahamoggallana, the Venerable Mahakassapa, the Venerable Mahakachana, the Venerable Mahakotita, the Venerable Mahakapina, the Venerable Mahachunda, the Venerable Anuruddha, the Venerable Revata, the Venerable Ananda, and other very well-known elder disciples. On that occasion, elder monks had been teaching and instructing new monks. Some elder monks had been teaching and instructing 10 new monks. Some elder monks had been teaching and instructing 20, 30, 40 new monks. And the new monks, taught and instructed by the elder monks, had achieved successive stages of high distinction. On that occasion, the Uposatha day of the 15th, on the full moon night of the Pavarana ceremony, the Blessed One was seated in the open, surrounded by the Sangha of monks. Then surveying the silent Sangha of monks, he addressed them thus: "Monks, I am content with this progress. My mind is content with this progress. So arouse still more energy to attain the unattained, to achieve the unachieved, to realize the unrealized. I shall wait here at Savatthi for the Kaumudi full moon of the 4th month." Stop here for a moment. This Pavarana ceremony is the full moon day at the end of the 3 months rains retreat. In India, the rain season is 4 months. The first 3 months, the monks have to stay in one place, one fixed place for the 3 months retreat. So at the end of it, they do a Pavarana ceremony, an invitation ceremony for other monks to criticize them. Each monk will invite other monks to criticize them in case they have done anything wrong. So after this Pavarana ceremony, this which signifies the end of the rains retreat, the monks normally can go everywhere, anywhere they want. But then here the Buddha says, because he's very happy with the monks' progress, he wants to stay for another month until the Kaumudi full moon of the 4th month. The 4th month of the rain season is called the Kartika month. And so this Kaumudi full moon, the name of that full moon day is this Kaumudi full moon day is the last day of the rain season. In Thailand, they celebrate this. They call it Loi Krathong. Lay people, they put out small paper boats into the river, into the lakes and all that, and the sea, and make a wish. The monks of the countryside heard. The Blessed One will wait there at Savatthi for the Kaumudi full moon of the 4th month. And the monks of the countryside left in due course for Savatthi to see the Blessed One. I'll stop here for a moment. Why they left to see the Blessed One? Because for them, they have finished the rains retreat. They can travel anywhere. But since they heard that the Buddha will be still staying on for 1 more month, and that is a chance to go and see the Buddha, because if the Buddha start going off, it's difficult to meet the Buddha. So they quickly came to see the Buddha. And elder monks still more intensively taught and instructed new monks. Some elder monks taught and instructed 10 new monks. Some elder monks taught and instructed 20, 30, 40 new monks, and the new monks taught and instructed by the elder monks achieved successive stages of high distinction. On that occasion, the Uposatha day of the 15th, the full moon night of the Kaumudi full moon of the 4th month, the Blessed One was seated in the open, surrounded by the Sangha of monks. Then surveying the silent Sangha of monks, he addressed them thus: Monks, this assembly is free from prattle, this assembly is free from chatter. It consists purely of hard wood. Such is this Sangha of monks, such is this assembly. Such an assembly as is worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of reverential salutation, an incomparable field of merit for the world. Such is this Sangha of monks, such is this assembly. Such an assembly that a small gift given to it becomes great, and a great gift greater. Such is this Sangha of monks, such is this assembly. Such an assembly as is rare for the world to see. Such is this Sangha of monks, such is this assembly. Such an assembly as would be worth journeying many leagues with a travel bag to see. Such is this Sangha of monks, such is this assembly. In this Sangha of monks, there are monks who are arahants, with taints destroyed, who have lived a holy life, done what had to be done, laid down the burden, reached the true goal, destroyed the fetters of being, and are completely liberated through final knowledge. Such monks are there in this Sangha of monks. In this Sangha of monks, there are monks too. There are monks who, with the destruction of the 5 lower fetters, are due to reappear spontaneously in the pure abodes, and there attain final Nibbana without ever returning from that world. Such monks are there in this Sangha of monks. In this Sangha of monks, there are monks who, with the destruction of 3 fetters, and with the attenuation of lust, hate, and delusion, are once returners, returning once to this world to make an end of suffering. Such monks are there in this Sangha of monks. In this Sangha of monks, there are monks who, with the destruction of the 3 fetters, are stream enterers, no longer subject to perdition, bound for liberation, headed for enlightenment. Such monks are there in this Sangha of monks. In this Sangha of monks, there are monks who abide devoted to the development of the 4 intense states of recollection or mindfulness. Such monks are there in this Sangha of monks. In this Sangha of monks, there are monks who abide devoted to the development of the 4 right kinds of striving, of the 4 bases for psychic power, of the 5 faculties, of the 5 powers, of the 7 enlightenment factors, of the Noble Eightfold Path. Such monks are there in this Sangha of monks. In this Sangha of monks, there are monks who abide devoted to the development of loving kindness, metta, of compassion, karuna, of joy, mudita, of equanimity, upekkha, of the meditation on foulness, of the perception of impermanence. Such monks are there in this Sangha of monks. In this Sangha of monks, there are monks who abide devoted to the development of mindfulness of breathing. Stop here for a moment. So here in paragraph 6, the Buddha said, the elder monks are intensively instructing new monks. What are they instructing? First, they have to instruct the Vinaya rules, monastic discipline, to the new monks. And then they have to instruct them the suttas, the words of the Buddha. And then thirdly, teach them meditation to achieve the jhanas. So when they say, when the sutta says, they achieve successive stages of high distinction. This refers to the high distinction, normally refers to the Uttari Manusa Dhamma, higher than normal human achievements, which refers to the jhanas, various, the 4 rupa jhanas, the 4 arupa jhanas, and cessation of perception and feeling. It also refers to the paths and fruits, the first path, first path, first fruit, second path, second fruit, third path, third fruit, and fourth path, and fourth fruit. And also the various abhinyas, various psychic powers. So all this is the stages of high distinction. Then the Buddha said there are arahants here, and then there are monks who have destroyed the 5 lower fetters. This refers to the anagamins. And then those monks who have destroyed 3 fetters and attenuated lust, hate, and delusion are once returners. The Pali word is sakadagamin, once returners. Once returners means they come back one more time as a human being, to have a human rebirth, after which they will enter Nibbana. So just like the Sakyamuni Buddha, in his last life as Siddhartha Gautama, probably came back as a Sakadagamin and strove until he attained enlightenment. And then the stream enterers refers to the Sotapanna. And then below the Sotapanna, the Buddha talk about monks who abide devoted to the development of the various, these few things are the 37 Bodhipakya Dhammas. The first, these Bodhipakya Dhammas, these requisites of enlightenment, sometimes they are referred to as the Abhidhamma, the higher Dhamma in the suttas. When the Buddha talks about the higher Dhamma, he refers to these 37 Bodhipakya Dhammas usually. So you can see here, there are monks who specialize in the 4 Satipatthana, and there are some specialize in the 4 Samappadhana, 4 right kinds of striving. There are some specialize in the 4 Iddhipada, the 4 bases for psychic power, the 5 faculties in some, the 5 faculties, the 5 Indriya, 5 powers, Bala, 7 enlightenment factors, the 7 Bojjhangas, Noble Eightfold Path. So you can see from here, not all monks specialize in the 4 Satipatthana. So sometimes the translation in some people, they translate the sutta, the Satipatthana Sutta, and they say that Satipatthana is the only way. That's wrong. Satipatthana is not the only way. You can see here very clearly that the monks, besides Satipatthana, they cultivate the other types of practices which are part of the 37 Bodhipakya Dhammas. The translation should be that Satipatthana is the one-way path. One-way path meaning it goes one way only to the end of suffering. Leads one to the end of suffering. And then besides that, there are monks who specialize in the 4 Brahma Vihara, Metta, Karuna, Mudita, and Upekkha. And some on the meditation on foulness, the 32 parts of the body, which was the first meditation the Buddha taught. And then some on the perception of impermanence, for example, contemplating the corpse, how our own body will turn into the corpse, the various types of corpse. And then the last thing the Buddha mentioned is the mindfulness of breathing, Anapanasati. What is not mentioned here is like the kasina. Kasina is something that was already in existence long before the Buddha. So I guess the Buddha thinks it's so common he didn't mention it. Monks, when mindfulness of breathing is developed and cultivated, it is of great fruit and great benefit. When mindfulness of breathing is developed and cultivated, it fulfills the 4 Satipatthana, 4 intense states of mindfulness or recollection. When the 4 Satipatthanas are developed and cultivated, they fulfill the 7 Bojjhanga, the 7 enlightenment factors. When the 7 Bojjhanga are developed and cultivated, they fulfill true knowledge and liberation. I'll stop here for a moment. Here, this sutta is talking more of the Anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing, which happens to be the very meditation the Buddha practiced himself. In the Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha said before enlightenment, he practiced Anapanasati, and even after enlightenment also he practices Anapanasati. But nowadays there are some monks, they say the Buddha's method of meditation is Vipassana. Vipassana meditation is not found in the suttas. It was invented later using the commentaries and the later books like Visuddhimagga. So in the suttas and the original teachings of the Buddha's own method of meditation is mindfulness of breathing. In fact, all the meditations taught by the Buddha are always samatha meditation. So here the Buddha says, mindfulness of breathing, if developed and cultivated, fulfills the 4 Satipatthana, and the 4 Satipatthanas are developed and cultivated, they fulfill the 7 enlightenment factors. In other words, which also leads to true knowledge and liberation. In other words, mindfulness of breathing, if developed and cultivated, fulfills the 4 satipatthana, and they fulfill the 7 bojjhanga, 7 enlightenment factors, and they fulfill true knowledge and liberation. And how, monks, is mindfulness of breathing developed and cultivated so that it is of great fruit and great benefit? Here a monk, gone to the forest or to the root of a tree or to an empty hut, sits down, having folded his legs crosswise, sets his body erect, and established mindfulness in front of him. Ever mindful, he breathes in. Mindful, he breathes out. Breathing in long, he understands, I breathe in long. Breathing out long, he understands, I breathe out long. Breathing in short, he understands, I breathe in short. Or breathing out short, he understands, I breathe out short. He trains thus, I shall breathe in, experiencing the whole body of breath. He trains thus, I shall breathe out, experiencing the whole body of breath. He trains thus, I shall breathe in, tranquilizing the bodily volition. He trains thus, I shall breathe out, tranquilizing the bodily volition. The Pali word is sankhara, which I translate as volition. Here it says formation. So here this paragraph says that when you practice Anapanasati, you notice the breath, whether it's long or short, and you experience the whole body of the breath. So this is important. You experience the whole body of the breath. So this meditation is about the breath body. It's not about a point. Nowadays, a lot of meditation teachers, they use the Visuddhimagga, which says that when you practice Anapanasati, you notice the breath at only one point, the upper lip or the tip of the nose. But this is not what the Buddha says, evidently. The Buddha says you should experience the whole body of the breath. So when you practice Anapanasati, you are observing the breath body. You are not observing a point. And then he says, I shall breathe in, tranquilizing the bodily volition. This bodily volition, as we have seen earlier, refers to the breath. You have Kaya Sankhara, Chitta Sankhara, you have Vachi Sankhara. So the Kaya Sankhara here, bodily volition, that means the volition of the body, the intention of the body to function is the breath. So as you practice your Anapanasati, slowly you tranquilize the breath. It becomes more and more refined, more and more gentle. This is natural as you sit longer. Initially when you sit down, the breath, maybe you're a bit tired or you're a bit excited or what. So the breath is a bit rough and a bit long. As you sit longer, your body calms down and your breath also calms down. So naturally the bodily volition, the breath, becomes more tranquil. He trains thus, I shall breathe in, experiencing delight. He trains thus, I shall breathe out, experiencing delight. He trains thus, I shall breathe in, experiencing pleasure. He trains thus, I shall breathe out, experiencing pleasure. He trains thus, I shall breathe in, experiencing the mental volition. He trains thus, I shall breathe out, experiencing the mental volition. He trains thus, I shall breathe in, tranquilizing the mental volition. He trains thus, I shall breathe out, tranquilizing the mental volition. So here it says, I shall breathe in, experiencing delight. You cannot force yourself to experience delight. When the breath becomes more and more tranquil, and then your mind becomes one-pointed, then the delight will arise. So that's what it means. It doesn't mean that you keep on breathing and waiting for the delight to come. So your attention is not on the delight, your attention should be on the breath. And if you put enough attention on the breath and your attention becomes one-pointed, then that delight and the pleasure, piti and sukha, will arise by itself. Experiencing the mental volition refers to this chitta sankhara, which is the perception and feeling, or feeling and perception. So this delight and pleasure is the feeling. So when you experience the delight and the pleasure, you are experiencing the mental volition, the feeling itself and the perception of that delight and the pleasure. So as the mind calms down, this feeling and the perception also tranquilizes. So that also is natural as you practice longer. It trains us, I shall breathe in, experiencing the mind. It trains us, I shall breathe out, experiencing the mind. It trains us, I shall breathe in, gladdening the mind. It trains us, I shall breathe out, gladdening the mind. It trains us, I shall breathe in, concentrating the mind. It trains us, I shall breathe out, concentrating the mind. It trains us, I shall breathe in, liberating the mind. It trains us, I shall breathe out, liberating the mind. This also are states which are higher states. As the mind becomes absorbed in the jhana, then you experience the mind, and the mind, that pleasure and that delight gladdens the mind. And in the third jhana, the mind becomes concentrated. Earlier we read about the description of the jhanas. It says in the third jhana the mind is more concentrated. So this liberating the mind, maybe when the mind is in the state of one-pointedness, then there's no thinking, there's just awareness. So maybe in that sense, you experience the mind and you liberate the mind from all these defilements, these thoughts. He trains us, I shall breathe in, contemplating impermanence. He trains us, I shall breathe out, contemplating impermanence. He trains us, I shall breathe in, contemplating fading away. He trains us, I shall breathe out, contemplating fading away. He trains us, I shall breathe in, contemplating cessation. He trains us, I shall breathe out, contemplating cessation. He trains us, I shall breathe in, contemplating relinquishment. He trains us, I shall breathe out, contemplating relinquishment. Monks, this is how mindfulness of breathing is developed and cultivated, so that it is of great fruit and great benefit. This last part now is contemplating what the Buddha has told us about impermanence of everything. So when you contemplate the Dhamma, here is contemplating the Dhamma, at the same time is breathing. Well, of course, when you are contemplating the Dhamma, you don't think of your breathing, you just think of the Dhamma. And how, monks, does mindfulness of breathing, developed and cultivated, fulfill the four satipatthana, the four intense states of mindfulness? Monks, on whatever occasion a monk breathing in long understands I breathe in long, or breathing out long, he understands I breathe out long. Breathing in short understands I breathe in short, or breathing out short, he understands I breathe out short. Thus, my trains thus, I shall breathe in, experiencing the whole body of breath. Trains thus, I shall breathe out, experiencing the whole body of breath. Trains thus, I shall breathe in, tranquilizing the bodily volition. Trains thus, I shall breathe out, tranquilizing the bodily volition. On that occasion, the monk abides contemplating the body in the body, ardent, fully aware and mindful, having put away covetousness and grief for the world. I say that this is a certain body among the bodies, namely in-breathing and out-breathing. That is why on that occasion a monk abides contemplating the body in the body, ardent, fully aware and mindful, having put away covetousness and grief for the world. So here you can see when you are contemplating the breath, the Buddha says, even though the breath doesn't look like a body, but the Buddha considers it a body, in the sense that it is the breath body, in breathing and out breathing. So later in the next sutta, we come on the Kayagata Sati Sutta, mindfulness of the body. This is one of the bodies. So, in the practice of the Satipatthana, there are 4 objects we have to pay attention to. The first one is body. So here when you contemplate your breath itself, the Buddha says that is practicing Satipatthana, the first object of Satipatthana. So it doesn't have to be a human body. This breath body is also counted. Monks, on whatever occasion, a monk trains thus, I shall breathe in, experiencing delight. Trains thus, I shall breathe out, experiencing delight. Trains thus, I shall breathe in, experiencing pleasure. Trains thus, I shall breathe out, experiencing pleasure. Trains thus, I shall breathe in, experiencing the mental volition. Trains thus, I shall breathe out, experiencing the mental volition. Trains thus, I shall breathe in, tranquilizing the mental volition. Trains thus, I shall breathe out, tranquilizing the mental volition. On that occasion, a monk abides contemplating feelings in feelings, ardent, fully aware and mindful, having put away covetousness and grief for the world. I say that this is a certain feeling among the feelings, namely giving close attention to in-breathing and out-breathing. That is why on that occasion a monk abides contemplating feelings in feelings, ardent, fully aware and mindful, having put away covetousness and grief for the world. At this part, the Buddha says, when you experience delight, when you experience pleasure, you are experiencing feelings. So, in that sense, this mindfulness of the breath is a contemplation of feelings, and feelings is the second object of Satipatthana. The other thing that you can say, because here it says, I say that this is a certain feeling among the feelings, namely giving close attention to in-breathing and out-breathing. When we give attention to our breath, going in and going out, sometimes it's very hard to see the breath. So you know that the breath goes in and out. Why? Because of that feeling. Some people feel the breath rather than to see the breath. Just like when the wind blows on your body, you have the feeling, right, of contact. The feeling that the wind is blowing against your body. You can feel the wind. So in the same way, when the breath goes inside us, into our lungs, and goes out, you can feel the breath. So for some people, this contemplation of the breathing in and breathing out is like a feeling of the breath. Because of sloth and torpor, we cannot see the breath properly. Our mind is not clear. So you know the breath. For some people, you feel the breath going in and out. That's why is when you pay attention to the breath, then you are paying attention to feeling. That's what. There's another interpretation that you can give here. Monks, on whatever occasion the monk trains thus, I shall breathe in, experiencing the mind. Trains thus, I shall breathe out, experiencing the mind. Trains thus, I shall breathe in, gladdening the mind. Trains thus, I shall breathe out, gladdening the mind. Trains thus, I shall breathe in, concentrating the mind. Trains thus, I shall breathe out, concentrating the mind. Trains thus, I shall breathe in, liberating the mind. Trains thus, I shall breathe out, liberating the mind. On that occasion, a monk abides contemplating mind in mind, ardent, fully aware and mindful, having put away covetousness and grief for the world. I do not say that there is development of mindfulness of breathing for one who is forgetful, who is not fully aware. That is why on that occasion a monk abides contemplating mind in mind, ardent, fully aware and mindful, having put away covetousness and grief for the world. So here in the same way, you can see here when the Buddha refers to the third object of Satipatthana, mindfulness of the mind, you can consider in two ways. One is when you reach the stage where you're experiencing the mind, or the mind is gladdened, or the mind is concentrated. So because you are aware of the states of the mind, so the Buddha says this is practicing Satipatthana, contemplating mind in mind. Another way of looking at it is that when you are paying full attention to your breath, your mind is not running away. Your mind, you are not forgetful. You are very mindful of the breath. So for that reason, because you are practicing mindfulness, the Buddha says, you are contemplating the mind as the third object of Satipatthana, because the Buddha says here, there is no development of mindfulness of breathing for one who is forgetful. If you are practicing mindfulness of your breath and your mind runs away, then you are not practicing mindfulness of the breath. You are practicing forgetfulness of the breath. But if you are mindful of the breath, then the Buddha says you are contemplating the mind, because your mind, you are in your mind, you are not elsewhere. So in this sense, you can read two meanings into this paragraph. One is you are experiencing the mind, and the other one is that you are being very mindful. That's why you are practicing contemplating the mind. Monks, on whatever occasion a monk trains thus, I shall breathe in, contemplating impermanence. Trains thus, I shall breathe out, contemplating impermanence. Trains thus, I shall breathe in, contemplating fading away. Trains thus, I shall breathe out, contemplating fading away. Trains thus, I shall breathe in, contemplating cessation. Trains thus, I shall breathe out, contemplating cessation. Trains thus, I shall breathe in, contemplating relinquishment. Trains thus, I shall breathe out, contemplating relinquishment. On that occasion, a monk abides contemplating Dhamma in Dhamma, ardent, fully aware and mindful, having put away covetousness and grief for the world. Having seen with wisdom the abandoning of covetousness and grief, he closely looks on with equanimity. That is why on that occasion, a monk abides contemplating Dhamma in Dhamma, ardent, fully aware and mindful, having put away covetousness and grief for the world. Monks, that is how mindfulness of breathing, developed and cultivated, fulfills the four Satipatthanas, intense states of mindfulness. So this last part, when you are contemplating the Dhamma, the Buddha's teachings, at the same time, of course, you are breathing, but your attention is more on the Dhamma. Your attention is not so much on the breathing. So at that time, you are practicing the fourth object of Satipatthana, contemplating the mind. So you can see here, just practicing Anapanasati, you are practicing the four Satipatthana. So unlike what nowadays some Vipassana monks say, they say that the Vipassana meditation is this Satipatthana, synonymous with Satipatthana meditation, but it is not. Because later you see in the next section, if you are actually practicing the four Satipatthana, is equivalent to practicing the seven Bojjhanga, seven enlightenment factors. And we can see later that the seven enlightenment factors consist of certain factors which have to do with jhana. So if you cannot attain jhana, you are not practicing Satipatthana or the Bojjhanga, which is what the Satipatthana Sutta says in the Samyutta Nikaya. From this section, it's very clear. Anapanasati, the practice of Anapanasati is equivalent to the practice of the four Satipatthana. And how monks do the four Satipatthanas, intense states of mindfulness, develop and cultivated, fulfill the seven enlightenment factors. Monks, on whatever occasion a monk abides contemplating the body in the body, ardent, fully aware and mindful, having put away covetousness and grief for the world. On that occasion, unremitting mindfulness is established in him. On whatever occasion, unremitting mindfulness is established in a monk. On that occasion, the mindfulness enlightenment factor is aroused in him, and he develops it. And by development, it comes to fulfillment in him. Abiding thus mindful, he investigates and examines that Dhamma with wisdom and embarks upon a full inquiry into it. On whatever occasion, abiding thus mindful, a monk investigates and examines that Dhamma with wisdom and embarks upon a full inquiry into it. On that occasion, the investigation of Dhamma, enlightenment factor, is aroused in him, and he develops it. and by development it comes to fulfillment in him. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha says, when a monk abides contemplating the body in the body, on that occasion unremitting mindfulness is established in him. If you all remember the Samyutta Nikaya, in the Satipatthana Samyutta, the Buddha gave a simile to make us understand how to practice Satipatthana. And this simile, the Buddha said that the most beautiful girl of the land came out, and then the men clapped their hands and shouted, most beautiful girl of the land. And then they asked her to sing and dance, and when she sang and danced, more people came out and clapped their hands. So an ordinary person, guy, came along, and he was caught by some people and forced to carry a bowl of oil filled to the brim. And they told him, we have somebody walking behind you with an uplifted sword. Now you walk among all the crowd of people, all the people. And if you spill even one drop of oil, we will chop off your head. So this guy has to carry the bowl of oil among the great crowd of people. Does he dare to look left and right? He dare not. Because if he spills one drop of oil, he will lose his head. So he pays unremitting mindfulness to that bowl of oil. He walks without looking at anything else. He puts 100% attention on that bowl of oil for fear that he will spill. So that simile was given by the Buddha to make us understand how to practice Satipatthana, namely unremitting mindfulness on one object. Not many objects, like what is taught now in Vipassana meditation. They say one object after another. That is not the Buddha's method. The Buddha's method is unremitting mindfulness on one object only. Because in the Satipatthana Samyutta also, the Buddha stated in one sutta, using the simile of the cook, the Buddha said, a skillful monk who practices the Satipatthana will attain concentration, that means the jhana. Whereas an unskillful monk, meaning one who practices it the wrong way, will not culminate in jhana, will not attain jhana. So if you practice Satipatthana correctly, skillfully, it must end up with the jhanas. So when this year, when he is practicing mindfulness on the breath, practicing unremitting mindfulness, the Buddha says on that occasion, the mindfulness enlightenment factor is aroused in him. In other words, the mindfulness enlightenment factor in the Bojjhanga is also unremitting mindfulness, one-pointed mindfulness that does not run away. Abiding thus mindful, he examines the Dhamma with wisdom. Here the translation is state, it's not state. It's the Buddha's teachings. Examines the Buddha's teachings with wisdom. Then when you investigate the Buddha's teachings, that is the Dhamma Vichaya, investigation of Dhamma enlightenment factor. So that's how when you're practicing this Satipatthana, you're also practicing these Bojjhanga, their equivalent. In one who investigates and examines that Dhamma with wisdom and embarks upon a full inquiry into it, tireless energy is aroused. On whatever occasion, tireless energy is aroused in a monk who investigates and examines that Dhamma with wisdom and embarks upon a full inquiry into it. On that occasion, the energy enlightenment factor is aroused in him, and he develops it, and by development it comes to fulfillment in him. In one who has aroused energy, unworldly delight arises. On whatever occasion, unworldly delight arises in a monk who has aroused energy. On that occasion, the delight enlightenment factor is aroused in him, and he develops it, and by development it comes to fulfillment in him. In one who is delighted, the body and the mind become tranquil. On whatever occasion, the body and mind become tranquil in a monk who is delighted. On that occasion, the tranquility enlightenment factor is aroused in him, and he develops it, and by development it comes to fulfillment in him. Stop here for a moment. So we look at paragraph 32. It's talking about this monk now uses energy like virya. So when he uses energy in his practice, that is the energy enlightenment factor. And then when he uses energy in the correct way, then unworldly delight arises. Unworldly delight, last year when we went through the Samyutta Nikaya, we found one sutta, namely Samyutta Nikaya 36.31, under the Vedana Samyutta, where it talks about worldly delight and unworldly delight. Worldly delight refers to the delight that you get when you enjoy worldly pleasure. When you enjoy the 5 chords of sensual pleasure, worldly delight arises. But unworldly delight, it is stated, arises in the first jhana, and is also found in the second jhana. So here, because unworldly delight only is found in the first and the second jhana, so here we are talking about the jhana state. So this the delight enlightenment factor, piti, refers to the first jhana, because only in the first jhana or second jhana you can attain it. So here we are stepping into jhana already. After effort is aroused, then using unremitting mindfulness among meditates, using energy and unremitting mindfulness, he attains unworldly delight, piti. So this is the piti enlightenment factor. And then after that, the mind becomes tranquil. The mind becomes tranquil. So this mind becoming tranquil, you can say, can be the first jhana or the second jhana. The second jhana also. Because in the second jhana you also have piti, delight, and tranquility. Then in one whose body is tranquil and who feels pleasure, the mind becomes concentrated. On whatever occasion the mind becomes concentrated in a monk whose body is tranquil and who feels pleasure, on that occasion the concentration enlightenment factor is aroused in him, and he develops it, and by development it comes to fulfillment in him. He closely looks on with equanimity at the mind thus concentrated. On whatever occasion a monk closely looks on with equanimity at the mind thus concentrated, on that occasion the equanimity enlightenment factor is aroused in him, and he develops it, and by development it comes to fulfillment in him. Stop here for a moment. So here, if you look at page 900, there's a description of the jhanas. That's the Anapanasati Sutta, page 900. In one whose body is tranquil and who feels pleasure, the mind becomes concentrated. So here we are talking about, just now we were talking about the second jhana. Mind is tranquil and he feels pleasure. Now he says the mind becomes concentrated. Now we look into the description of the third jhana. Let me see. This paragraph 7 on page 900. Again, monks, with the fading away as well of delight, Sariputta abided in equanimity, mindful and fully aware, still feeling pleasure. Third jhana. I think this description is not so complete. Let me see. There must be another sutta. There are some translations where they show that in the third jhana the mind becomes one-pointed, becomes concentrated. I don't know why it's not here, but never mind. So here, this paragraph 35, this mind becomes concentrated and is tranquil, and also you have pleasure. On that occasion, the concentration enlightenment factor is aroused in him. This should refer to the third jhana, when the mind becomes concentrated, concentration, enlightenment factor. And then paragraph 36, he looks on with equanimity, the mind that's concentrated. This one, the mind is concentrated and he possesses equanimity. This refers to either the third or the fourth jhana. In the third jhana, there's in the description of the third jhana, if you look at page 900, with the fading away as well of delight, among abides in equanimity, and mindful and fully aware, still feeling pleasure with the body, enters upon and abides in the third jhana, on account of which Noble once announced, he has a pleasant abiding who has equanimity and is mindful. So in the third jhana, you have equanimity, but in the fourth jhana, you have utter purity of equanimity. In the description of the fourth jhana, in the state of the fourth jhana, there is utter purity or perfect purity of equanimity and mindfulness, sati and upekka. So here we are referring either to the third or the fourth jhana. So these bhujangas, these enlightenment factors, the last few factors all have to do with the jhanas. So similarly, the Buddha continues on paragraph 37. Monks on whatever occasion among abides contemplating feelings as in feelings, ardent, fully aware and mindful, having put away covetousness and greed for the world. And then the description is the same as previously, paragraph 30 to 36. And then 38, on monks on whatever occasion among abides contemplating mind in mind, ardent, fully aware and mindful, having put away covetousness and greed for the world. It's the same thing. And also 39, on whatever occasion among abides contemplating Dhamma in Dhamma, ardent, fully aware. So all these 7 bhujangas are developed. Monks, that is how the 4 intense states of mindfulness developed and cultivated fulfill the 7 enlightenment factors. So whether you practice contemplating the body or feelings or mind or Dhamma, the Buddha says it ends up that you are developing also the 7 enlightenment factors. And how monks do the 7 enlightenment factors develop and cultivated fulfill true knowledge and liberation? Here a monk develops the mindfulness and enlightenment factor, which is supported by seclusion, dispassion and cessation, and ripens in relinquishment. Similarly, he develops the investigation of Dhamma, enlightenment factor, energy, enlightenment factor, delight, enlightenment factor, tranquility, enlightenment factor, concentration, enlightenment factor, equanimity, enlightenment factor, which are supported by seclusion, dispassion and cessation, and ripens in relinquishment. Monks, that is how the 7 enlightenment factors developed and cultivated fulfill true knowledge and liberation. That is what the Blessed One said. The monks were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. That's the end of the sutta. So you can see from here that this Anapanasati, when you practice Anapanasati, you are, according to the Buddha, you are practicing the 4 Satipatthana, and you develop the 4 Satipatthana, it is equivalent to the 7 Bojjhanga, which ends in true knowledge and liberation. So unfortunately nowadays there are some monks who belittle Anapanasati, but this is the Buddha's own method of meditation, and which the Buddha praises. So this is a very important sutta. Later when you have time, you go through it slowly and you understand more. Say again. 251. Let's see. Yeah, but it's the same description. It's the same. Well, we have done 51 minutes, so maybe we should stop here, because the next sutta is also a very important sutta, so we don't want to go too fast. So let's just recap this Anapanasati sutta. Buddha said, monks, when mindfulness of breathing is developed and cultivated, it is of great fruit and great benefit. When mindfulness of breathing is developed and cultivated, it fulfills the 4 satipatthana. When the 4 satipatthanas are developed and cultivated, they fulfill the 7 enlightenment factors. When the 7 enlightenment factors are developed and cultivated, they fulfill true knowledge and liberation. In other words, if you develop fully Anapanasati, it leads to true knowledge and liberation, which is what the Buddha achieved. Because the Buddha's method was just Anapanasati, and he used that to remember his past lives. And when he remembered his past lives, all the Dhamma he learned from the Buddha Kassapa came back to him. And when he reflected on the 4 noble truths, then he attained enlightenment. And then you have this description of the Anapanasati. But this description of the Anapanasati into, they call it 16 steps. You don't have to worry about practicing it one by one. Important is just practice Anapanasati, and these things will fall into place. It should fall into place. And then after that, the Buddha described how he says that mindfulness of breathing is equivalent to the 4 satipatthana. Firstly, the Buddha says mindfulness of the breath is mindful of a body, the breath body. And then secondly, when you perceive certain feelings, delight, pleasure and all that, you are practicing meditation on feelings. And also, because when you give close attention to breathing, the breath is a certain kind of feeling. The breath itself coming in and out of the body is a certain kind of feeling. That's why mindfulness of breathing is also considered contemplation of feeling. And thirdly, when you practice mindfulness of breathing, you are mindful, your mind has not run away. So because you are mindful, then the Buddha says you are practicing contemplation of the mind. And also when you attain certain high states of meditation, then you're experiencing the mind itself. Then lastly, when you contemplate the Dhamma, then and you're breathing in and out, then you are practicing the 4th object of Satipatthana. And then later the Buddha described how the practice of this 4 Satipatthanas using the breath is equivalent to fulfilling the 7 Bojjhanga, 7 enlightenment factors. Okay, we stop here for tonight. Anything to discuss? Contemplating the Dhamma from the first step itself can go together with the meditation. You see, when we sit in meditation, we should always practice samatha, try to achieve one-pointedness of mind. But when we are not sitting in meditation, then we can contemplate feelings, we can contemplate the state of our mind, we can contemplate the Dhamma when you are not sitting. But when you are sitting, you always try to achieve one-pointedness of mind, try to sharpen your mind. No. When your mind comes down, you must pursue it until you can attain the various jhanas. What is taught nowadays by a lot of meditation teachers is that when you are sitting, you you contemplate the other objects of satipatthana. But I don't think so, because this samatha, to attain the jhanas, you can only attain the jhanas in sitting meditation. So because of that, when you are sitting in meditation, you should only try to attain the jhanas. And then when you are not sitting, for example, you are sitting in a bus or you are driving a car, then you can contemplate the other objects of satipatthana.
When we come to the practice sometimes as the full awareness of slowly, sometimes it disappears. And then sometimes it comes on, you start reminding the various suttas into shift. One at that stage, abandon it and come back to the one, concentrating on just the mindfulness on the breath. Or should we continue? Very often I find that once in a while, the mind breathes and reconnecting to
when you are practicing the meditation, sitting meditation, it's stated here, you should have unremitting mindfulness. Unremitting mindfulness on one object. For example, on your breath. But if it so happens that you find it hard to pay attention to your object of meditation and some sutta comes to your mind, if you feel that you may benefit from recollecting that sutta, then you go ahead. But if you're sure you're going to get some benefit out of it, otherwise don't just think of any dhamma. You're supposed to pay attention, undivided attention on just your meditation object.
When we start meditating, we are being mindful of it. At the same time, we are also mindful of the midnight account. So in a way, we are having a broad sort of mindfulness. Should it be that way, or should we just shut off the mindfulness?
Shut it off. Shut it off. Because you're supposed to pay unremitting mindfulness one thing. The other thing that you notice when the description of the satipatthana, practice of satipatthana, you're supposed to contemplate the body in the body. When you're contemplating the body, the breath body, and then your nimitta, whatever, or thoughts or something come into your mind, and you pay attention, you are contemplating your object of meditation, which is your breath body, among your thoughts, among your nimitta and all these things. You are not practicing contemplation of the body in the body. So when you practice satipatthana, you're supposed to contemplate the body in the body, not among thoughts, among this and that. One point, or as Venerable Thanissaro translates, contemplating the body in and of itself. In and of itself, not among thoughts and among other objects. You can do that. A lot of people, when the mind starts straying, they are paying attention to the breath. At the same time, they think of their office. At the same time, they think of their children. All these things. That is not the contemplating the body in the body. Only one object. No 2 or 3 or 4 objects. Just because you're not paying enough attention. You must realize sometimes because the nimitta is quite interesting. For example, light, color or something. So some people they are attracted by that. So they go and pay attention. Also because of greed, they think, wow, this nimitta. So they think it's something good. But you must understand that nimitta arises because you have been paying attention to your breath. Now you keep paying attention to your breath, that nimitta may become brighter. But if you go and pay attention to that light nimitta or color nimitta or whatever, due to greed, then that will disappear. If it doesn't disappear, then you are imagining. Some people like to imagine. They imagine hard enough. Whatever you want to imagine, our mind is very powerful. Whatever you want to imagine, you can imagine. That's why, like in the Zen meditation schools of early China, Chan Chung, they say more lie, more Chan, for lie, for Chan. And Mara comes, you cut him off. And the Buddha comes also, you cut him off. In others, whatever you see, whatever you hear, or just ignore it. It's trying to distract you. I think yesterday we went through that sutta where the Buddha says that to practice the Noble Eightfold Path, you must start with right view. So the foundation in the Dhamma is extremely important. If you don't have a good foundation in the Dhamma, you might be practicing the wrong way and you are not aware of it. So the Dhamma is our teacher. The Buddha says after he has entered Nibbana, take the suttas as your teacher. So you must have a very good foundation in the suttas. A lot of people go straight into meditation. That's not advisable if you don't have a solid foundation in the Dhamma. You must know the suttas very well. Then only you start to practice. Don't be greedy. A lot of people are greedy. They want to achieve something that they can see, just like worldly people. They chase after money because you can see money in here and now. I talk about blessings in the future life. A lot of people don't. Because cannot see future life blessings, rebirth in heaven and all that. They cannot see. But you can see now people want. So in the same way, a lot of people come into the holy practice and they want to sit in meditation, want to achieve jhana, want to achieve jnana, want to achieve psychic power and all these things because of greed. So must follow the Buddha's instructions and get right view first, have a good foundation in the Dhamma. But of course, if you want to practice meditation to sharpen your mind, can. But remember, must be combined with the suttas, knowledge of the suttas. This last night, Giorgio mentioned about practicing something and developing it. So, like right view, we have to develop that right view also, and there are different levels. A person who has attained the first path, he has achieved right view. His right view is the right view of a stream enterer, first path attainer. which is different from the right view of an Arahant. Just as a person who has attained stream entry, by achieving right view, he has attained wisdom. But that wisdom, compared to the Arahant, is shallow wisdom. Just like the concentration of a stream enterer. If he has attained the first jhana, he has some concentration. But that also is low compared to the concentration of an Arahant. So when we attain right view, as a first path attainer, we still have to develop it. It takes time to develop before it becomes equivalent to the right view of an Arahant. So when a person attains stream entry, that right view means he has eliminated some avijja, some ignorance, but not 100%. If he has eliminated ignorance 100%, he would have become an Arahant. Because there's one sutta in the Samyutta Nikaya where the Buddha says, all unwholesome states arise from ignorance. And when ignorance is totally eliminated, all unwholesome states are eliminated. But a person, when he has attained stream entry, even though he has a certain amount of right view, certain degree of right view, has he eliminated all the unwholesome states? He has not. He has not eliminated all the defilements. Only the Arahant has eliminated all the defilements. So that's why only the Arahant has completely eliminated 100% ignorance. Whereas even the fourth path attainer has not eliminated, or an Anagamin has not eliminated 100% ignorance. So this elimination of ignorance is at different stages for different levels of Aryahood.
Then after that, concentrate on the problems. You have read up to 150 times for the Buddha is not so hard to catch. Where you should stop from first jhana and then go to one to concentrate on
just now I did mention that study of the Dhamma can begin from the beginning. Anyone who comes into the Buddha's teachings, you can start learning the Dhamma, and at the same time you can start meditation also, just to sharpen your mind, to make your mind more focused. But I also mentioned that the priority is the Dhamma. Then I also mentioned that when we sit down in meditation, we should only contemplate one object to attain one-pointedness of mind. And we saw, I don't know whether we have come across that there's one sutta where the Buddha says that when his disciples, he encouraged them to attain the jhanas. So when he says when the disciple has attained the first jhana, the Buddha said that is not sufficient. The Buddha says to surmount that, to go higher than that. Then after that, the disciple attains the second jhana. Then the Buddha says that even that also not enough. The third jhana, even that also not enough. Fourth jhana. And then the Buddha says fourth jhana also not enough. Let's get the base of boundless space. Even that also not enough. Base of boundless consciousness. That also not enough. Try to get base of nothingness. That also not enough. Try to get base of neither perception nor non-perception. And even that, the Buddha says, is not enough. If you can, and attain the cessation of perception and feeling. And when you come out of that, you automatically become an arahant. So the Buddha's teaching in the suttas is that even the first path, this what you call it, assess concentration or first jhana is not enough. You have to achieve higher. In the Buddha's teachings, the concentration, the minimum which you achieve is the 4 jhanas, because it is stated in some sutta that when you attain the 4 jhanas, everything becomes very clear to you. You can see things very, very clearly. So it's not a matter of attaining assess concentration, then come out of it and then contemplate. Because you can contemplate any time. Once you have achieved the assess concentration or the first jhana, you have eliminated the five hindrances. And when you have eliminated the 5 hindrances, you don't have to come out immediately after that state of concentration and contemplate. Any time after that, you are already rid of the 5 hindrances. Any time you contemplate, you can see things more clearly than someone who has not achieved assess concentration, who has not achieved the first jhana. So it's not necessary to come out of it immediately and contemplate. Any time you can contemplate. Okay. Okay, shall we end here?